Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hammer Podcast. We're live. It's 5 o'clock. It is April 17th, 2024, and I'm speaking with Matthew Salerno.
Very well said.
All right, good. I want
Perfect.
to make sure I get everybody's name correct.
Spot on.
So, all right, like I said, April 17th. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can get the notifications when we go live. You can get me on social media. It's down here on the bottom, scrolling. It's also going to be in the description box. Okay. So we're going to get to it. Matthew went to the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York. All right.
Okay.
So go ahead and start, Matthew.
All right,
Start
Jason. Thank you.
here. You're welcome.
Yeah, I took some notes to try to stay focused. I guess the lead up to me going to the family school, I'm adopted. I was adopted. I was an arranged adoption, but my birth mother must have had cold feet when I was such an adorable baby. Maybe I'm not sure, but she left. And didn't finalize the adoption for 6 months while she was in Italy. So my birth parents had to foster me, not having me. I was baby boy Caputo for 6 months. Now I'm Matthew Salerno, and they've passed on, and God bless their souls. But um, I had no experience with drugs or alcohol. I was simply a disciplinary case. Communication wasn't good between my parents and I. I was, I live in New York, close to New York City. I'd go into New York City at 14, 15 to see bands play, uh, piercings. My parents thought that was horrific at their age. And the music that I was listening to, Sex Pistols, The Clash, oh my God, the Misfits.
Nice.
My
Nice.
parents would lose, they lost their mind. I went to a boarding school out of grammar school, a prep school. And when they came to visit me, I had a mohawk. And subsequently, I went to the family school the very next time I went home. When my mother said she saw me with a mohawk, that was it. And she couldn't take my disciplinary actions anymore. The family school pretty much promised that they would, teach me honesty, improve my schooling, work on my spirituality. And I believe both my parents were under that real assumption. My father didn't want me to go. They knew I would probably run. I had very loving and caring friends and friends' parents who were not okay with this concept. Other people in my neighborhood had gone to the family school before me.
Uh-huh.
It was sort of maybe I don't want to say epidemic, but from the area of Westchester County I was from, there was a few students that ended up there from one person and one referral. In any event, so my parents put an immense amount of trust in the family school, and I got there and I was escorted by two off-duty police officers. They were gigantic. I was 15, but I swear they were at least 250 pounds. And they had, because I'm a little wise guy. I asked right away, like, how do you have permission to use a police car if you're not on duty? And the police get permission to moonlight with police issued, with actual city issued or state issued police uh, equipment. So it was
Right.
completely legal for them to moonlight in a police car and pick me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, wake me up, put me in a car and drive me to Hancock with my parents following behind, my father in tears because he didn't want to leave me. My mother not sure. They decide to leave. The students that are going through my stuff, because students were in charge of students, which is a recipe for disaster because that's just spite on spite.
Definitely. Definitely.
They recognized me in Family One, and said right away that I was in for it. You're in Family One. because the leaders of Family One were two people. One has passed away. I believe Robin and Paul were the heads of the family, and they were nasty, nasty human beings. My first experience there was because of this group of people from the same area that had been sent there. There was a girl who was there who knew my group of friends. Now, there was no way a punk rock kid like me couldn't also be drinking.
No,
So when
yeah.
I was stood up in front of the family and I said, I've never drank or done drugs in my life, they told me I was lying. And a girl, because she could shine on me, because why not step on the next person to make yourself better? She'd already been there 6 months, probably was terrible for her, raised her hand and said, I know your friends and they all drink. You probably drink with them. So I lied. I lied for 3 months that I was an alcoholic so they'd leave me alone. And this concept of honesty being pressed on us all the time, I eventually broke down. They have, I'm sure you've been made aware of the table topics where they'd call you up
Yes.
at a
Yes, I
meal
have.
in a you fashion in front of mixed gender and just completely berate you. One student would have an opportunity to say, I saw you do this, we did this, whatever the case may be. Whoever said it first was right. And then the staff would go crazy on you. And then punishment would ensue depending on how the students would gang up on you.
So it
Um,
doesn't even matter if it was a lie.
no,
They
it
would
doesn't
take
matter. It didn't matter
they
because
would
I
take
had
it to be
not.
true. Yeah.
I had never been drunk, smoked pot. I'd never done a drug in my life. And I was standing up there crying, saying, I've been lying for 3 months. So you guys leave me alone. I've never been drunk. And they punished me for lying about that. And then this is where it gets crazy. I then became a sex addict because there was nothing to peg me on. There was no addiction 12-step program for them to loop me into. I don't know if there is I don't know if there is a connection with Synanon. I remember having overheard conversations with a gentleman, Mike, um,
Mike.
and Robin at the time, comments about excessive consumption of carrot juice to such a degree where the beta carotene turned their skin. They were all involved in a
Whoa.
big 12-step cult before the family school developed. In any event, I was then, as a person would have to do a 10-step or a 4-step, as they would call them, what they had determined, tell everything you've ever done wrong in your life, became a way for this gentleman, Paul, to specifically have me speak about every single sexual thought that passed through my head from the ages of 15 until Paul and Mike duct taped a cinder. I had not been home once in the entire time I'd been there. On a Christmas, my friends were very adamant about getting me out of this school. They had stolen mail from my parents.
Yeah.
My friend Sal had broken into the uh, answering machine. He'd figured out the code to get the answering machine messages. And on Christmas break, my parents were so worried that I'd run away if they take me home. They took me to a bed and breakfast. And my friend Sal and a couple friends drove up to the family school to break me free. I didn't know this was going on, but I came back to the school and apparently I had gotten in a bunch of trouble. I had orchestrated this huge breakout that didn't work out right because I wasn't there for the friends to take me out. And
Yeah.
uh, that that
Wow.
that support actually helped me in the long run because when my parents didn't believe me when I got out of the school, my friend's parents actually put them in a position where they said, we'll go to the authorities about him not going back to this school. And my parents gave me another option. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but
Did you get any mail or any uh, phone calls or anything from your parents when you were there?
that brings up an interesting concept. Well, they have 2 phone calls for 5 minutes a week. It's funny how this stuff never leaves your head. I haven't talked about this. I'm 40. I'm going to be 42. I don't think I've told this story in 20 years. 2 phone calls, 5 minutes each. If you didn't do your homework, you had to sign the blackout list. The day I turned 16, my 16th birthday, they told me I hadn't finished my math homework because 2 problems weren't done, made me sign the blackout list. And I can't imagine this man is still alive because he shouldn't have been alive when we were there. Artie, I'll leave out his last name, but his drug of choice when he was active and not a staff member was huffing
Mm-hmm.
glue. So if it was a brain cell to rub together
Yeah,
with cartilage, I'd be surprised because there weren't 2. I think it
yeah,
was absolutely obscene, but he turned my parents away and sent them home because of 2 unfinished math problems. Sending my parents back 2-hour drive to Westchester County, not seeing their son on his 16th birthday. All this stuff is sort of, it's traumatic, but it's all like this stuff that I feel like I've told a million times. I wanted to come on your show and I wanted to speak specifically about uh, this decision to make me a sex addict, to
right.
fit into there, and the things that happened because of that with specific members, staff members. And if I can talk about that, that'd be great. I think
Sure, go ahead.
putting someone in a position where they're in a mixed gender environment and they're being told that normal feelings of adolescent puberty are tantamount to shooting heroin, uh, put me in an emotional position where they got out of me every single thought, sexual concept from a minor that they could possibly in mixed gender environments where other students would raise their hand and tell me how disgusting I was or my thoughts. And this ended up in a period of time, them sending me to the priest at that time, him telling me it's not to be, well, I don't want to get gross. A
Whatever.
5 month period.
If you need to say it, get it out. I mean,
There was a
people.
5 month period of time where they put me in front of the family on maybe a weekly, I would say maybe bi-weekly basis to check up on whether or not I had masturbated.
Yeah,
5 months of being checked up on to make sure that I had not
yeah,
touched myself in a normal adolescent pubescent manner in class. This is embarrassing, but I was 16 and I ejaculated in class.
right.
Hey,
Well,
what was
the
I going to do after 5 months of 16?
the
It
thing
was
is,
gonna,
for grown-ups, who are not your parents, to talk to you about this kind of stuff,
and they're telling
that's
me it's wrong.
that's ridiculous. People can be brought up on charges for that.
Well, it gets a little intense. So I go in tears to Mike and I tell him, who had started getting like I don't, whatever. I was punished. I was told that this action that my body took, this
Yeah, it's wrong.
was wrong. I was put on a, work sanction. I was put in the corner. I had my shoes taken away. The tuna fish nonsense where they give you dry tuna fish on. I still don't eat English muffins. I can't eat an English muffin because of the grain on the bottom, that cornmeal.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know about tuna fish either, but the subsequent things that happened after that was constant punishment, constant inquiry into my and stories. I ended up, my parents had moved without telling me while I was in the family school. And the family school said, we don't want him to be able to go home. We don't want him to go to his house. And my mother said, well, I want him to see the house he grew up in before we sell it. And so they let me go home. And I called my friends because they loved me. And
Yeah.
my parents weren't listening. The school didn't give a damn. And my friend's mother, my friend was in, doesn't matter. My friend's mother, they made this happen, you know, they got together, they got everyone together. I ended up back at school on a work sanction for having called my friends. I had a cinder block duct taped to my hands, and I was forced to walk for 16 hours a day around the school. There was two buildings. One was built after the other. When I first got there, they were building what ended up to be the school building.
Right.
The other was the house, and then we lived in trailers. When I
So,
first got there, I lived with 15 other boys in Paul's basement.
oh,
His basement was the initial dorm that I lived in for 6 months. This man that I don't know what I can and cannot say. I'm sure it's pretty public knowledge, but 6 months underneath this man's house turned into him and his friend Mike telling me an hour and a half worth of perverted stories, personal perverted stories that they did of things like following a woman for 3 hours around New York City with the intention to find a good place to violate her, and then telling me that I would end up as a male prostitute if I didn't do things their way because I called my friends, and to go back out on the work sanction and think about it. It was all really fishy, and I ran away that night. I just put like some stuff in the bathroom. I had noticed that most kids ran away down the street and got caught, so I ran into the woods, not really knowing where I was going. Eventually found the road. We went back and clocked it. I walked 14 miles along the road, found Hancock eventually, called my friends. They came up and got me.
now, Matthew, who told the school that you had called your friends when you went back?
Within, let's say it's the summer. So my birthday was around July. This whole thing happened. So my birthday is July 9th. I go home for 2 or 3 days. I come back. We were in school all the time. And this honesty, this you need to be honest or you're going to end up in the gutter unless you're honest. I'm told, if you have anything you want to tell us now, immunity, and you can get it off your chest. So I go up to Mike and I say, when I went home, I called my friend Sal and he said, take your shoes off, you're in the corner.
They,
So it
they
was a
lied to
trick.
you.
It
Yeah.
was a trick. It was a
Yeah.
trick. And I'm sure I was the exact person he wanted to get in the corner. That was like, I've watched these shows. I feel like it was just a long session of grooming. And that was it. I flat out say I am naturally an effeminate person. I'm a dancer. I
Nothing
I'm
wrong
a
with that.
theater kid. I'm a theater kid. I dance. I was a male cheerleader. I think all of that was sort of taken advantage of a little bit. Um,
I think they use that to their advantage to fuck with you. I think it's what
I
they
think
did.
frequently. I think I saw a lot of people in the school. They were both. It was very split. There were the people who were there for seemingly no reason, behavioral reasons. There were the people that were there for drug related reasons. Um, and then the stories that you hear after, I don't really know, it's so strange to look back on. I remember after having run away And having been back with my friends, feeling a sense of guilt and calling the school and telling the school, since I left, I've been hanging out with my friends and listening to negative music, and they were like, "Oh, well, you should definitely come back, and it's not too
No,
late for you to come back." Of course, right?
right.
But that ingrained, you're doing something wrong for everyone across the board. It became opportunity for predators. So you could look across the board, you could say, okay, that person's probably a little bit too smart, but Matt, he's naive enough because he hasn't been through all this. I ended up sort of looking up to the people who were in there for, PINS petitions or drug charges and things like that. I looked up at them as the people who were there for real reasons. And I was there, punk rock kid. Baggy pants were popular at the time, so no one was allowed to wear baggy pants. But I wore really tight pants, so they didn't know what to do with me. So they made me wear baggy pants. And then everyone who wore baggy pants got jealous that I got to wear baggy pants and they didn't. So then they made me wear the tight pants. They didn't know, it was a shit show. Excuse my language, left and right.
That's all
But
right.
it was just this want to like find something that each person could be exploited for. And for
Yeah, they,
me, it was, I think, my sexual naivety. And they were able to, without, and ungrateful that I was never physically touched, I was mentally destroyed. I didn't know. Hi everyone. I didn't know whether I was coming or going for.
I
I
think,
never went through. I never went through puberty.
I
I
think,
came to the school. I tapped a
uh-huh.
girl on the shoulder the first night, and I said, "Could you pass the salt?" It was like the end of the world. The whole place came to a stop because I touched the girl.
Yeah,
I tapped the girl on the shoulder and said, "Could you pass the salt?" On the first day I was there, and it was like I just grabbed her by her butt and said,
yeah.
"Let's go, sweetie." So
I think that
you know, I
they watch you and they I guess interact with other kids and maybe talk to those kids and say, "Hey, this new guy, um, what's he talking about?" And they use that and try and find your weakness or they try and find your vulnerabilities. You know what I
that
mean? And
yeah
then they
that
exploit
yeah
it. You know,
I I I agree with that. I think with me there was a definite that naivety was strong. Um, the want to be accepted anywhere.
right?
The want to, like you're either on Buddy or Shadow. Those were the names. Either or you're in the middle, or you have the privilege to Buddy and Shadow. So I'm in this program, but I'm never really given the ability to be a senior member, as they call it, because I think the school kind of knew like I would never really chase anyone down and make them stay at the school. Like what would I do as a how could I wouldn't really look out after another person and tell them to stop doing something or whatever. I think all of that was sort of like used against me, my inability to progress at the school, them keeping me in sort of a middle position so that I never felt like I was getting anywhere. Uh, and then this constant daily reminder that I am suffering from a sexual addiction, that my normal pubescent thoughts are an addiction. And I left that school and I experienced all kinds of real addiction. And I have to say that if this man was not in my life, I don't believe that I would be where I was in the past. That as a direct result of the confusion he put
Yeah,
in my head, I didn't, I didn't know what consequences would come from what. I was so lost and so confused for such a long period of time.
Well, because they were telling you things that
Right.
you knew weren't correct for one thing, and they kept reiterating it and saying, "Yes, it is. Yes, it is." So what are you supposed to think? And then they call you a sex addict. I
Well,
mean,
that was the main thing. I think that was the opportunity, and I look at it at this point, that was the opportunity for them to get the daily update from Matt of sexual perversions to help them with whatever they were doing in their spare time, whatever
right.
extracurricular activities they had. I was like, why ruin that? Like, if like maybe they knew if they took it a little too far, I would say something, but let's just keep it right here because Matt will continually provide anything we ask him, he'll tell us. Oh no, tell us more. Oh no, you thought more about her, didn't you? Oh well, was there anything about any guys? And
They
what
were
else have you done? Was there anything you did when you were young? Oh, there's more, and
they were. It looks like it sounds like they were feeding their own sexual addiction.
and
Is what
that's
they
what
were
happened at
doing.
that very last instance where I felt trapped in that room with the windows shut, being sort of told that like I had a choice to either do it their way or go back out with a cinder block taped to my hands with not a specific what is their way. Their way made no sense because they spent the entire time lecturing me about their perverted acts, specific perverted acts. I did this. What one of the gentlemen went as far as, what's with me? One of my hot buttons is French kissing. I have to make sure I tell my wife that I can't French kiss because I'll go too far. Why are you telling a 15-year-old that you
Right.
can't? You have to tell your wife things because you're a sex addict. I don't give a shit if you're a sex addict. And then the other guy
Yeah.
telling me that he was stalking a woman for 3 hours to rape her, and then saying, go back out with the cinder block. We're going to tape it to your hands. You walk around the house you go to school in and think about what we just told you. What did you want me to think
I,
about? The
right.
sex?
And if
Yes, they wanted me to think about
probably
sex compared to work. Do I
sounds like
want this or do I want sex with these guys or do I want work? Like
yeah, it sounds like grooming is what it sounds like.
that's
I
what I
mean,
said. Like, and I hate to
e-
say like
even though they didn't
stupid
do anything,
documentaries about Drake and like these famous people grooming young girls.
yeah,
I have identified with that so many times, feeling like I was being groomed by a group of people in like that choir. Like, I don't mean to say choir, but this is by Paul, being in dance, being a cheerleader, being, and that was actually really, really beneficial at one point.
sure.
Uh, my friends knew that I was involved with cheerleading, followed the basketball schedule of the family school, came to an away game, saw me there, and ran up. The school grabbed me and dragged me back to the school right away as soon as they saw that my friends were at the away game. But my friend Sal came up to me and gave me a big hug, and oh, it was great. My friends really tried hard to get me away from the school as if they were the only ones listening and my parents weren't, and my parents were listening to the school. They had no choice. I don't feel any anger towards them. I
Yeah,
know they just wanted to help me be what they thought was the right on the right path. They
right.
wanted me to be on the right path, and that's
But little did they know
well,
that
the
this
school in
stuff was
general
going
had
on.
so many underlining agendas that would go on to when I first got there, they were just implementing other I guess like right around like between 97 and 98, it was mostly Christian. And then they started implementing other religious services and Jewish services on different days and things like
Okay.
that. But mostly only Jewish and Catholic, Judeo, whatever.
Yeah, Judeo Christian. Yeah.
Yeah, Judeo-Christian. And Yeah, there was a lot of opportunity for spiritual growth, or independently. Um, but it came down to Christianity always, to a point where even the Jews would walk around with WWJD bracelets on and say they were Jews for Jesus, but they were children. So how does a child make a decision that all of a sudden he was raised Jewish or she was raised Jewish, that it's the mother's religion? Now they're deciding that Jesus is their savior because they've been at the family school? That's not Jewish. There is
Yeah.
so the whole concept of me being exposed to Jews for Jesus at 16 years old was just another agenda manipulation of the school to try to get their way. I remember the
Right.
triangle on top of the school when you'd come in, the AA triangle. What is honesty, purity, and unselfishness or something like that? And they did none of it. There was no purity, there was no honesty, and it was all selfish. I mean, I don't know. The Argeros, can I say that?
Yeah. Go
Can
ahead.
I say the owners, whatever their names were?
Sure.
They're I mean, it was like you said, yeah, you mentioned earlier, if you could it, pay for something like that, you wouldn't even. The massive amount of money that they must have been making by manipulating parents. There were some children, I'm sure, that needed help, and there were real places for those children to go to. This wasn't that place. Like, friends that I had when I were there, very close friends. I don't, and I don't want any names, but um, he seemingly had no issues other than the fact later on in life, learning that he was homosexual, it seemed like that was the only reason he was there. Like they were trying to church the gay out of him, like
Yeah. Pray the gay
succeeding,
away. Yeah.
church the gay away, right? And that's what that school was all about. Like you could propose anything. You could be a parent and you could bring your child there and you could say anything. And that school would manipulate itself into, or like, morph itself into whatever was perfect for that parent and that student, whether it was a judge mandating a student to be there through a PINS petition, or an overweight student with glandular issues that couldn't lose weight and wasn't active, and their parents were embarrassed. You
And,
know,
and they would take away any medication that these kids were on.
medication. So I was prescribed ADD. I was on Ritalin. They took away my Ritalin. My grades improved. That's, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
There were plenty of people who needed to be medicated that weren't. And you could see the massive amount of depression that some of these people would go through. Massive amounts of depression. Like, I'm thinking of a specific person. I'll try to leave names out. You could see the depression daily just weighing down on this person. He had gotten there after me, and he was just must not have wanted to be there, just feeling crushed. And here was another person that didn't have a drug addiction, had really no identifiable reason why he was there. And he is in the same position as me. Now, he's depressed, but he's being told he's depressed because he's masturbating. So he's showing physical traits of depression, and they're saying, you know why? It's because you masturbated last night, didn't you? I mean, what are the chances of you, 16? You got a 1 in 5 chance probably of
Sure.
getting it right, of any adolescent, pubescent teenager. And it's not unhealthy. What's unhealthy is 16 students in a double wide trailer with 2 bathrooms and shower timers. We'd get in a shower and we'd have 5 minutes to take a shower, and the door would be open and somebody else would be using the sink, and there would be a person who'd have a watch, and his job would be to time you while you were in the shower. That had 2 purposes. One, to make sure everybody was, clean. Some people took showers in the morning, some people, and 2, so you didn't have enough time to masturbate in the shower. It's clear. You
Or
had somebody
three,
coming in.
or three
Three,
to get their fucking rocks off watching the boys shower. I mean, it always, for some
no
reason,
locks on the doors. Staff members had free reign in and out of the trailers when we were moved into trailers. I mean,
I don't.
I was definitely, other people definitely had worse experiences than me. I mean, I don't want to talk about other people's experiences, but
Right.
I mean, the physical experiences that people have had from these people are ridiculous. And I'm just another person who sat there watching it, experiencing his own abuse. It wasn't physical, but it was enough abuse that they could get away with the other abuse. So there
Sure.
was, even if the abuse was just enough to keep you from seeing what they were doing in closed doors, it was abuse.
Well,
It was
yeah, but
live.
like I
Yeah,
was saying though, I mean, yeah, they probably didn't. They probably made you all feel uncomfortable doing that,
yeah.
and it probably turned out they weren't going to do anything to you, but they were watching, and when they got to their room,
Spank
you know
bank?
what I mean?
Yeah, the spank bank. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I said, like, I don't want to say that I can't compare myself to anyone who had an experience of physical contact or any sort of interaction of any kind. However, yeah, that growing up and realize that I was in a different situation, like I could have just been in a different situation or in a younger situation, been videotaped, or maybe I was videotaped. Maybe we were all videotaped.
Maybe.
We lived underneath this person's house
Right, in the basement.
for a long
Yeah.
time in the basement, and I don't know,
Somebody
man.
I want to say this here. Somebody commented, it says, "How is it not even a bigger case in the public with more people brought up on charges?" I don't know if the staff or anybody who were there were ever brought up on charges. I have no idea.
How
Uh,
much can I say or can't? There was a period a couple years back. Actually, it was probably longer than a couple years, but the the priest, whether I can't make names, was brought up on charges. As far as I know, I was contacted by a alumni, um, to find out whether or not I had ever gone on these retreats. Um, can I say his name, his first name?
his first name, yeah,
Father Stephen. So Stephen there was taking boys on retreats and he was being inappropriate. And that was brought to the feds, and a forensic pathologist, or whatever the case was, an alumni saw his case across their desk and started gathering information via social network for that case. Um, and I spoke with her, but I never had any instance with Father Stephen physically, and I never
well,
really wanted to talk about this stuff anyway. So,
yeah. Well, this
you know,
person here says Paul Gear,
that's
the
the yeah.
so-called music teacher, was just indicted. Nice.
Every Paul is the man that I lived underneath. Paul is is family one. When I came to the family, and Paul and Robin Ducey, who's passed away, so I can say her last name, and Mike, who I can't say his last name.
Yeah. Wow.
But and Paul, yeah, Paul was specifically, I can say, the orchestrating factor in every single thing that happened to me while I was there. When he passed me off, he moved from family one, they made another family, the family six. Robin stayed and Mike joined. And I feel like he and Mike sat down and were like, "Hey, I want to tell you about Matt. You want to keep this going. It's a good thing," because nothing changed. Paul was incredibly inappropriate. I was always connected with Paul through my music, through I was in jazz band, but the jazz band, he was wonderful. The jazz band instructor, he was, like we'd have outside people that would come in and didn't really get an idea. My physics
Right.
teacher was a wonderful teacher. I got the highest grade on the physics regents that year. I remember him coming into my family. He was so proud. Some of the staff really cared. Others just, we were just little prey. We were prey, and
Yep.
I in retrospect, I see these stupid videos of like I say, Drake or R. Kelly, they groom these girls from a young age. They're
Yeah.
not technically inappropriate, but they're planning on being inappropriate once, it's old enough or whatever the case
Right.
may be.
It says
Yeah,
here. It says here Paul has the FBI on his ass for taking 3 different students
3 across
across
state borders. Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
abusing
read
them.
the
Wow.
indictment. He was indicted about a week ago. I read the indictment. Um, and that's why, and I got to tell you flat out, I
Yeah.
contacted you after finding out about Paul, and I just wanted to flat out be like, Paul ruined my life. Like, if it wasn't for Paul's negative influence on me in the beginning, I wouldn't have experimented with the shit that I did when I got out. I wouldn't have. I mean, he just had me so
And
screwed up. And if I
how
had,
many
oh,
go ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, 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 no.
And how many other people, has he ruined? Other people's lives.
That's the thing you're saying 3 kids across state border. In 1998, when I was there is no possible way that Paul wasn't doing, like, this isn't something that just popped up. I believe Paul was convicted of a sexual crime while he was employed in 1998. As far as I know, he was open about not to mention the fact that he was open about the fact that he was a sex addict and living on campus with children in 1998. So do you really think that these charges that just came up in 2024 are new? When
No.
this man in his 30s was telling 14-year-olds about his perversions? Of course not. And so I decided as a child, I put my picture there. I don't want my child's face or name out there, but
Sure.
I'm a father, and Paul would not. I mean, when I read that the judge put off deciding on whether or not he was going to be released from jail for house arrest during trial, I was instantly online. I found you. I texted you. This man needs to never leave prison, and he needs to be in Gen Pop. Because
Yeah.
if like right now, I would guarantee he's up in Syracuse, or like he's up in Albany, wherever he is, and he's in isolation. Because if he was in Gen Pop,
They kill him.
he'd be almost unable to make it to court, and
Right.
that's
Now
it.
we now we got
Grace.
we got some people. Yes, some people from the family founding who were there. Grace, she actually was on the podcast too. I want to say hello to her. And
Yeah.
a lady has a question for you. She says, "Do you think there's any possible way that any of the staff did not know what was happening? I believe they all
Yes.
had to have known."
No, I can't say all. I want to say that like the maybe they had suspicions. Okay, all right. Let's be honest. There's no way you really could have ignored what was happening at that school. That's the truth.
Yeah.
I suppose that even the best person there had at least one inkling that maybe 1 or 2 instances shouldn't have happened. They made us take care of the property. I was mowing the lawn. I never really used a push mower before, and I was 15 years old. I slipped on a
Uh-huh.
hill. I slipped on a hill, and my foot slipped underneath, just completely tearing up my sneaker. Thank God I didn't lose my foot. This was a sort of like, is it possible that a staff member didn't know what was going on? Well, maybe a staff member chose to ignore. I mean, there were some good staff members
Right.
there, but like,
Sure.
I mean,
Well,
that's
she
a
well
really
she
good
al-
question.
she also put.
Yeah,
I'm not just talking about. Oh, go ahead. I'm not talking about the SA. I mean all the abuse.
yeah, yeah, all of it. There's
My
no
crazy life.
way
Thanks for the question.
everyone had to. I,
I
I don't
mean,
want to throw anyone under the bus because, like, but like even the nurse would
right.
have had to know
But you have to
because
realize also. You have to realize also, Matthew, that some of them probably knew, but didn't want to
ignore
get involved. They
exactly.
didn't lose their job. They probably
Could you
had.
imagine being the school nurse? Now she's employed to be the healthcare provider for the students that are there. And she's also being influenced by the school to not medicate them the way the doctors that had been seeing them before they were there had been prescribed. So
Right.
how is that ethical? Like if
It's
you think
not.
about it in that, then so flat out across the board, absolutely every employee realistically had to have some notion that this was happening. That is a good
Right.
question. There's no way.
Yeah.
Even if I want to give as much, what was
Were you there
were
with? Were you
just
there with
there
the?
was a crossover. Yeah, they were building the big house, the school when I got there.
Okay.
Um,
Right. But
they were just finishing it, and that's actually interesting. Someone drew a Wu-Tang symbol on the bathroom.
uh-huh.
And there was a student there before I had gotten there who was absolutely prolific graffiti artist. I'm an artist, one of the most amazing graffiti artists I've ever seen. He just sit there and doodle in class, just amazed, like 8 arms eating a cereal bowl of his name. Anyway, um, they decided that it was his fault because he was a graffiti artist, put him up in the gym in front of everybody in the school and blamed him for it for like 6 hours. And it
Yeah.
was some other kid. It was some other kid.
Huh.
It's you. It was you. You definitely did it. Just admit it. He finally said, "Fine, it was me," and it was this other kid. It was some other kid, and they never did anything about it. God forbid they say I'm sorry. Anyway,
Wow. She goes. And thanks for the questions, everybody. That's why I'm doing it live today. I understand that what you're saying, but as a mom and a human being, I don't think I could have lasted an hour or a day there without alerting every authority I could. The problem is, you couldn't
you
alert the
couldn't. You didn't
authorities.
have anyone to alert. Your parents were your. I was like, and I say, and I was lucky because when I ran away, I didn't have to run away and like hide in the woods. I ran away and I had a safe haven at my friend's parents' house because they were aware of. I don't know. They had been made aware of the school,
Right.
or what other students had run away from the area. So many people were going to the family school from that area of Westchester. Um, And I think the really close relationship between me and my friends, and then one day I was just gone. My friend's band wrote a song about me called Matt's Last Dance. My friends, I got out of the school. I was famous. You're the kid you went to the school? You're Matt from Matt's Last Dance. So, like that was all super confusing, but having those people probably saved me. I couldn't imagine being in that school and getting to a point where it was like, do I run to save my life and have nowhere to go? At least I knew if I could get to that McDonald's that there would be somebody on the other end of the phone. There
Uh-huh.
were students there whose parents just, if you could imagine if it was a serious offense, if the student was there on a pins petition, but the staff were still of the same nature, there was nothing that student could do because they were legally put there, they were mandated there, and
Yeah.
so what are they going to do? Are they going to call their probation officer and say, this school is terrible? Of course not. They're,
No.
or their pins petition officer or whatever,
And even if
call
they
their parents,
did,
don't trust them.
right, even if they did, they're probably not going to believe them.
No one would. No one trusts us. No one
That's
trusts us. That's how we ended up there.
and that's the problem with not having any regulation, state regulations, or any oversight.
Absolutely.
They can't go in there. They can't assess what's going on if somebody makes a complaint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
That's the problem.
You're absolutely right. I had I had an opportunity. I was actually in I was in AA. I was I had a long stretch of Alcoholic Anonymous sobriety, and there was a kid who had come out of the Allenwood Academy. They had closed and reopened as
Alan
Allenwood,
Wood.
you know,
Yep.
and he was talking about how horrible it was. And he had gotten out in like 2012 or I don't know the date, but it was hysterical to listen to how he was talking about how terrible it was and showing me pictures of him like on a dog pile with the other girls. We weren't even like allowed, you know, there was no
No interaction.
associating with the females.
Yeah.
You know, maybe during soccer, like your, you know,
I
gym
mean,
class, I guess.
I
I
mean,
could touch
Matthew,
the girls the most because I was a cheerleader. Take
right?
that.
But I'm saying, but there, all you did was touch a girl in the shoulder and ask for the salt,
Day
and
one.
you, it's
I
like,
it went quiet. It was the record player.
yeah,
A guy touched a girl. You know, but
alarm goes off.
that's what
Yeah,
happened when I ran away. There were no locks on the doors. We lived in trailers, but they had an alarm system that was that was hooked up to everyone's beepers. So if a student opened the door after the time we were put in the, you know, it would go off and everyone would be alerted. So that's why I just
right.
hid in the woods. I figured if I ran down the street, they'd just come and get me. So it
Yeah,
worked. I'm glad it
and,
worked.
and you noticed how far they were out of town.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
that's
it,
strategic. That's strategic.
well, when I got to town, Paul and a few kids, senior members, had
Yeah,
driven into town, and I noticed this school van. So I quickly walked into the supermarket parking lot, and they tried to talk me back into the van. And I just walked into the supermarket, and they sat in the van in the parking lot for a long time until eventually driving off. And then I walked to the McDonald's. I made the phone call, and I fell asleep in the field behind the McDonald's until my friends came and got me. But um, and again,
wow.
that's luck that I had, that you can imagine all the other students that were literally trapped. You know, they were literally trapped there. I took, I made a play and I got free, but yeah, the students that couldn't, I mean, I couldn't imagine if I was under a position where I, you know, maybe I wasn't actually physically uh, assaulted
About-
because I wasn't a mandated student. I can't imagine what happened to students, you know, like that are on the, that he's been convicted of, you know, and there
Right.
has to be many more, I'm sure. It's very difficult to talk about these things, but
Sure. Now,
um,
now,
I don't even know if I'm being clear.
Yeah, you are. Tracy says, but those people were freaking cowards not to stand up and report what was happening at the school. They had a duty to protect the kids. Yes,
Yeah,
Tracy, they did.
duty, and the word is duty, but yeah, go
Right.
ahead.
But you also have to realize
They had a job,
that they had a job. Maybe that job paid their bills, paid their rent, paid their mortgage, whatever,
paid their kids tuition
tuition.
at not a crappy school, you know, and
Yeah.
we all kind of look the other way at crap at our jobs, you know. Like I own my own business, but I have to look the other way when I have customers that I add the pain in the ass fee to, you know, like I have to
Yeah.
say, okay, if I want to make money, I have to deal with someone I don't really like. You know, but
Now, I'm not saying what they did was correct, but
yeah.
there's other factors that you
Oh,
have to
absolutely.
you have to associate with this. Like I said, I mean, if this was just a somebody who was retired and this is their part-time job or whatever, they got a pension, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But if these are young staff or even middle-aged staff who do this for a living, this is their livelihood. I mean, some people will say, "Yeah, I don't care," but some people will like, "Oh, I hope everything works out for them,"
Well, that
but
was
I
her
need to
point
think of
about
myself.
duty. Yeah. The what you said about, yeah, no, I didn't mean to say that it was an excuse by their because it was their job. Well, I'm just doing a job. That would be like excusing the
Right.
Holocaust because the soldiers were just soldiers. But I I feel sort of that the the duty was there, but annihilated. It was wiped away. The duty was there to protect the kids initially, but they chose to ignore the duty to protect the children by opening the school in the first place. By accepting me, by my parents going there, and by allowing me there, and telling my parents they were going to help me with honesty, integrity, help my what they did was not duty. Their
Right.
duty from the start was to protect us. And that's what they sold our parents. And that's the biggest, I think, crime that the school, if you could personify the school committed a crime by lying and saying, we're going to take on this duty of parenting your child. Because I have a duty to parent my child. If my wife wasn't taking care of my child right now and he needed me, I would say, excuse me, and my duty is to take care of him.
Right.
They took on that duty. And every single staff member there threw that duty to the wind by taking the job. Because,
Right.
I mean, I guess it's maybe a new recollection, but that question, even the nicest staff member had to acknowledge the fact that this was not an okay environment. I think back on the staff members that would come from the outside. I think specifically about my physics teacher and the jazz band, the leader, the jazz band instructor, because the jazz band instructor, only came to teach us about the instruments and then left. But still, they must have seen. I mean, we would take trips together, and they would come, and they brought us to Toronto, so they must have seen the way they treated the kids and things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Like I
there's no
said,
way that
that
everyone had to know. So
I mean, that's basically putting you in a tough situation. And by the way, a girl here, her name is your favorite villain. She says hello. She was on the podcast as well.
okay,
So yes, yes,
good,
lovely woman.
good, good, good.
So, but yeah, just it was. I mean, I guess I can understand. Let's say they were there, they just started. A brand new staff member, not really, into it yet. Probably there a couple of weeks or a month, and this happens.
Yeah,
I would say, yeah, you know what? You've only been there a month. Let's blow the whistle here and see what we can do, whether I get fired or not, because I've only been here a month. Now, if I've been here 6, 7, 10
it's a
years,
great point.
you know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, wait a minute.
It's
I've been here
true.
a
You're
long
bringing up a
time.
very good point of
Yeah.
vetting the staff before they hire. That means there must have been staff vetting before they hired. You bring
Yeah.
up a very, very good point, because you're absolutely right. If I was there 3 weeks and I was like, these kids shouldn't be moving a pile of dirt with 5-gallon paint buckets, I would say something. Um,
Definitely.
Grace.
She was in jazz
Um,
band too.
yeah, he was a good guy, but he most definitely was with us when we went to Toronto, so he would have seen the way they treated us. So there is no way that, like you said, a person of even short, there's no reason someone shouldn't have blown the whistle. And you
Right.
look back, everyone was related. I mean, the Arger, they
Yeah.
were living on, everyone was, Paul had his house with his wife on campus. There was the other one, he was living over there, and he was the blackout with our family at 3. Uh,
But see, a lot of these staff members, they're going to have to live with this. Okay.
Forever. Yeah,
I
screw
mean,
them. No, they deserve it.
if
I
I have,
don't know,
if
man.
I have, if there's staff members watching these podcasts about the Family Foundation School, and they see
I hate
how
to say,
you all were
with
treated,
all due respect, eat this, eat it. You did
yes,
this to me. Like, I
yes,
have to say it. That's why I'm on the podcast,
right,
because you chose to not do something to stop Paul from taking students across state lines and raping them. That's what I would say to a staff
Yeah.
member. I mean, the
But
reason I came on this was anger, was strict anger, you know.
they're responsible for what they, even though they didn't blow the whistle or whatever, what we were talking about before,
Right.
they still need to be ashamed of themselves.
I
And
would agree.
they're gonna live with this for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
You know, some might say, fuck it, who gives a shit? You know, those kids deserve it. And there
Right.
might be some that just go, oh my goodness, what did I do?
There
You
was
know?
not one student there who deserved it. God rest Cassidy. I mean, I don't know what stories have been told. A student that I was there with, who was there an exceedingly long period of time. There were some students who were brought young. I can say last names if they've passed away. I don't know. I don't want
Yes.
to. I
Well,
was
just say
there
the
with
first one.
Cassidy. Well, I was there
Cassidy.
with
Okay.
Cassidy Hines. Cassidy was shot by a straight bullet, New Pulse, and died. I believe he was going to school. He was going to college from the family school, which wasn't unusual. He was there before high school and after high school.
Uh-huh.
The the school didn't do very much good for really anyone. I mean, how many people are standing up and saying, "Hey, wait a minute. The family school did more good than bad." I don't see anyone saying
Not a
that,
one. And
period.
actually, I
So,
had somebody comment. It was on another school, but it doesn't matter. They
huh,
were saying, I don't see you, doing a podcast with somebody who was at this particular school and had good things to say because they're not coming forward. I
right.
give I give
Everyone, right?
I give a phone number you can text. I look at it. I schedule you in. You come on. If they're not texting me, how do I know they want to come on? You know what I mean? I'm
That's
not a
true.
mind reader.
It's true.
So
And yeah, it's a very good point. They have the same opportunity to say, hey, we did the best we could with what we had at the time. And that's the only valid point of, I guess, argument that they had, that at the time we did what we could. Well, at the time you dropped the ball. And fast forward, it's an atrocity. So I really, I mean, I came on specifically with the point of sharing my experiences with Paul, out of anger, and I appreciate you giving me this venue. I hope I've been clear, but
like I
I
said,
feel
there's a lot of people right now who were at the Family Foundation School that are rooting for you. You know what I mean?
well,
They're happy
that
that you're on.
question was spot on. That helped me quite a bit. That do I think, because I did have a thought in my head that there were some staff that would not, that maybe didn't know, maybe they didn't know, or there were some good staff. And I look at the dance instructor. I love dance, and he was a good instructor. And I think, did he? No, he must have known, because when I think back at it, everyone must have known, which means that at some level they had made a decision to be okay with it, which is horrific and has led to this indictment of Paul.
Right.
It could have, this could have been done in 2004. It could have been done
Yeah.
it could have, Allenwood didn't have to open back up. Yeah,
Yeah. And
you know,
it's I hope this is an albatross on their neck, man. I hope just stays with them for the rest of their life. And I'm probably
you're
will.
doing a good thing. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and
You're welcome.
I hope, I said something. I mean, my
Oh
heart goes
yeah.
out to anyone that they had a worse experience. I know many people have had much worse experiences than I did and didn't get a chance to run away to a loving community. But
The thing is with everybody coming on, everybody has a different story.
that's
Some of it's
very,
the same, but very very little. But it gives you kind of a wider perspective on this school. You know what I
yeah,
mean? About
yeah.
what they were doing to these certain people. And it also tells you the mindset of the staff, And the only
It's
thing I
such a
can
good point. Yeah.
the only thing I can think of with the staff is they were pieces of shit.
I've spent so long focused specifically on what these men had done to me. I haven't really looked at all the instances and what with this staff member, what did this staff member do? Or, the way they had night staff that weren't actually teachers, they just kind of hired people to watch us. And did they really have enough? They must have. These people that they hired that weren't really teachers or clinicians of any kind, and they were there monitoring quote unquote troubled teens. How did they not know something was up? You're absolutely right. The question was spot on. Everyone had to everyone
Yeah.
had to have known, and everyone had to have made a conscious decision that whatever benefits they were getting were better than the deficits we were getting. It's
And
horrible.
and to, and also what could have happened, and I'm just speculating. Maybe the person, let's say a good staff member, was told by an evil staff member that this is going on. But if you fucking say anything or try and go to anybody and blow this whistle, we're going to come down on you hard. You know what I mean? We're going to either sue you or prosecute you or fire you.
It's
Threats. You know what I mean?
possible that,
It's
yeah,
possible. It's possible.
in the school, it is very suspect that it got this far. That it got this far. That I'm 40. That I ran away from the school at 17 years old. You know, I was I believe that I'm lucky. I believe that I'm lucky. I just happened to notice and keep it to myself that the school was telling you that you could leave when you were 18, but that New York State's law was 17. That you were technically a legal adult at 17 and they couldn't put your hands on you after 17. The school liked to manipulate that, and they would. If you were still on the property, they'd grab you at 17, and that's not allowed. That's against the law. So
Right.
I knew they could when I was seven. I turned 17. I got out of there, but the people that were stuck there, I I don't know. It's horrific. It's horrific.
Yes.
I guess suppose I've said all I have to say. I guess.
Okay.
Uh,
Well,
but
I want to thank you for coming on,
sure,
Matthew. It
sure. Thank
was
you.
it was great. I want to thank everybody who's been commenting and asking questions. I think the live setup I think is a lot better because people can actually interact and ask questions. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it kind of
yeah.
bring up things. But we do have. I just want to say for everybody watching, uh, on the 23rd of this month, we're going to be having uh, Kina from the New Bethany Home for Girls. She's going to be on. And like I said, most of these uh, places, Matthew, whether it's secular, state, Christian, the
So,
torture's the same.
yeah,
It's amazing. And then the 29th of February, we're going to have who is that? Brian. He was at the Family Foundation School as well.
Brian.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
on the 23rd of this month, and the
Of this
30
month of
this
April.
month
Okay.
of
Gotcha.
April. Yes,
Yeah.
23rd of 29th of April. Now the 30th of April, I'm going to be having a Vietnam vet come on. He's going to talk about his tour of duty in Vietnam. You don't hear
I'd
too
love
many
to
stories
compare.
about that.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's going to be great. And what makes it special? Okay, I'm gonna let everybody know that this person coming on who's a Vietnam veteran is my father.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
so he will
God
be coming
bless.
on. Yeah, so he's going to be talking about his time there because he never really talked about it when we
My
were
father was
kids.
in the army. It's wonderful.
So something to watch out for. Now, for anybody who hasn't been on this podcast who went to the Family Foundation School, if you're in the comment section or you're going to watch later, give me a call. It's on the bottom right here. Let me see. It's right there on the bottom, or it's going to be on the top of my channel page. There are plenty of ways to get a hold of me. Let me know if you want to come on. We'll schedule you in. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and close it now. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Matthew, once again, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Jason. It was
Yes.
enlightening. I had a
Yes.
very enlightening time. Thank you.
And if you think of anything else, hey, we can bring you on for part 2. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Yes. So it's always
Thank you.
open. Okay? So
Thank
stay
you
on
so
the
much,
line.
Jason.
All right. Stay on the line real quick. Okay?
Will do.
Like I said, thank you everybody for coming on. Appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and make sure you the live on my channel page. There's all the live shows that are coming up. Hit the notify. That way you can be notified of it. Okay. So for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself. You take care of each other. And we're going to see you in the next podcast. All right. Have a great evening.